At this time, I want to introduce Judith Munson. And I want to make sure you know she is a published author. Her book is called Alligators in the Water Cooler. And that's why we have the little alligator on the program. And Miss Alligator is sitting up here smiling at you. That's her name, Miss Alligator. And Judith has brought a few of her books. They're going to be out in the entry so that when you leave, if you would like to take a look at her book, you can browse through it, ask her questions. If you want to purchase a book, it is $10. And you might find that very interesting, especially after you hear what she has to say. So, we have all seen the subject of bullies in the news. They're schoolyard bullies. We know about them. They steal other kids' lunch money. They kick sand in their faces. Really annoying. Those are the kids. There are also bullies in the workplace, adult bullies. Adult bullies in the workplace try to control you by yelling at you and by undermining your work. But what about other organizations like nonprofits and churches? Churches! Oh, please tell me it's not so. Not bullies in churches. Bullies in the sanctuary? Unimaginable. But they exist. Judith Munson was bullied in her workplace a number of years ago, and after she finally recovered from the trauma it caused, she was so ticked off that she decided to do something about it. Judith is a certified life coach from the Life Purpose Institute in San Diego. She is a trained lay counselor in her church, and as I mentioned, she's a published author. She wrote the book, Alligators in the Water Cooler. It's a guide to identifying bullies and their buddies in the workplace. Please welcome Judith Munson.
Well, I'll tell you right now, if you ever want anything emphasized, have Carol emphasize it for me, because she did a great job. Thank you, Carol. I think we have some hams in this church, or in several of the churches around here. Yes, the subject matter is on bullies, and it's a very tough subject matter for a lot of people that have been bullied, but I'll try and make it as soft as I can tonight for you. In John 13:34, we're given the commandment, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another." Now, since the beginning of time, bullies have been in existence. In Genesis 3:1, the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field which the Lord has, in which the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Indeed," God said, you may not eat from any tree in the garden." He's setting Eve up. The woman said to the serpent, "From the fruit of the trees in the garden we may eat, but from the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat from it or touch it, or you will die." Now in verse 4 it says, "The serpent said to the woman, surely you will not die. God knows that in the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened up and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil." This shows a clear, passive-aggressive way of bullying. I envision, when I was writing this and thinking about it, I envisioned the serpent in the garden. You know how they have those snakes from the baskets that kind of weave around and there's a face on them and everything? And I was imagining Satan, the serpent, coming up to Eve and just, "Well, it's okay. You can do that, and then you're going to be like God. Well, we all know what happened there. Everything went downhill from there. Satan didn't yell and he didn't scream at her, but he did bully her in a way that was very syrupy and gentle, which is a passive way of bullying. You know, we don't often think about, when we go to church, we don't often think about running into mean people in the church. I did have someone ask me a few weeks ago, do you have mean people in your church? And I said, no, not that I know of. But I'm sure that, you know, there might be a few here and there. We don't often think, like I said, that we'll find mean-spirited people in church. After all, aren't people supposed to love each other and be kind to one another? The problem is when Jesus told us that he wanted us to love one another, some people didn't think that meant all the time. They thought that it meant only on Sundays or at special occasions. Wrong again. Excuse me. But to my disappointment, I find not everyone who attends church is either loving or kind or respects one another. In Romans 2:1, therefore you have no excuse, O man, every one of you who judges. For in passing judgment on another you condemn yourself, because you, the judge, practice the very same things. From the research I've done, I've discovered that workplace bullying and church bullying, or bullying in the sanctuary, are really two different things. Bullying in the sanctuary doesn't outwardly come at you yelling and screaming, or at least not generally. In the workplace, they do. Okay, but the outcome is the same. The bully in the sanctuary wants to control you, and they want everything their own way. And it's the same in the workplace. So the outcome is the same, but the way that it's done is different. Before we go any further, let me tell you and give you a definition of what a bully is. Okay, please keep in mind, though, that some bullies don't realize that they're bullies. I would be one of those people. I have been known to bully. I don't know whether I've bullied at our church or not. Ask these ladies right here, they'll tell you. But I have a very strong personality, and I can come off like I'm bullying somebody because I'm telling them what to do. I don't mean to do that. But a bully, by definition, is a repeated mistreatment of one or more, using coercion, intimidation, by being overbearing, and by domineering. There's another form of bully that I'd like to share with you, and it's a narcissistic type of bully. Everybody know what narcissistic means? Okay, this type of bully you will be able to recognize. They're very self-absorbed. Everything revolves around them. They're very arrogant. They're seen as bossy, subjective, judgmental, and power-hungry. They envy other people. They see something that they want. They go after it, and they don't care who they step on or who they hurt in order to get it. They'll bully through exploitation. They don't have the capability to understand what their actions do to the rest of us or do to the person that they're bullying. And boundaries. They have no boundaries whatsoever. If you have boundaries, they will climb up and over in order to get to you. So they don't have any boundaries. They don't recognize boundaries. They see others as a means to serve their needs, or that person can be excluded. Now, I want you to picture this. You're at a church meeting, and the discussion goes in a wrong direction, and there's somebody in the audience that doesn't like that. And it goes like this. Hello, my name is Zelda Grebnecker, and I don't like what you just said, Pastor. I don't like the way things are going. And if they don't change, I'm going to pull my money and I'm going to leave this church right now. Well, the meeting goes silent, and that's about the end of that meeting. But there are some people in the churches that are like that. Now, let's think about what the people or the bullies in the churches look like. Could be the little old lady. You ever think about that? It could be a popular youth minister. It could be a middle-aged businessman. Or it could be a very aggressive, extrovert female. In fact, do not think for a moment that bullies are only singular in form. They come in groups. Ladies, you should know this. We have little cliques, and some cliques do bully others. They may be the pillar of the congregation. Or it could be a couple that has been there for many years, since the beginning of the church. They may be the family that has generations of members in the building. And yes, they can even be the family which gives the most, and they give the most contributions. In 2 Corinthians 11:14 and 15, it says, "No wonder, for even Satan disguises himself into an angel of light. Therefore, it's not surprising if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness, whose end will be according to their deeds." Now, I like to give you a little sidebar here. Did you know that women primarily bully other women? It's true. They're sly. They're slick. They will bully other women until there is nothing left to that other woman. Okay, I'm going to invite Donna to come up to the stage and help me demonstrate a little bit. Now, women, when they bully other women, they tend to not do it verbally. They'll do it silently. So please watch the body language with this. Okay, one of the ways that a woman will bully another woman is the looks, being sized up and down. Or the rolling of their eyes. The stare. I knew I chose the right person for this one. Or a dirty look. That'd be it. That'd be it. Watch out for these looks, people. Now, there's one that I think I've unconsciously created at our church, and I think our pastor recognizes it right off the bat. But have you ever noticed someone will go, when you say something to someone, they'll go, I'll do that a little louder. Or they'll go, By doing the it gives them a few seconds more to think of an answer. Now, Donna's going to demonstrate the different ways that these can be used. So you want to come up and do I have done some acting in previous years, so I knew that she would be the best one for that one. Now the latter, the example is used in two different ways. First, by saying, it gives you a few seconds longer, as I said, to think of a response. And secondly, to demonstrate disappointment. I do that frequently. And our pastor has picked up on it because he'll say something to me and I'll go, and he'll just say, he'll look at me and, well, what's the matter? You don't like that? So that is a form of bullying. In Proverbs 6:16 through 19 it says, there are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him. Haughty eyes, now think about this, ladies, haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that make haste to run to evil, a false witness who breathes out lies, and one who sows discord among brothers. I wanted to share with you, as Carol briefly mentioned, that I was bullied in the workplace many years ago down in Southern California. I worked in a hospital, which is the healthcare industry, in case you don't know, is really big on bullying, so just keep that in mind. I was bullied down there after I had left to have open heart surgery and returned to work after I was told my job would be there when I got back. It was, but not for long. They started bullying me, and every day my boss would call me into her office. I worked in admissions, and she'd call me into her office and she'd say, well, you know, this wasn't done right. Okay, so I fixed it. The next day, well, this wasn't done right, and I'd fix it. And it went on and on and on, and for 3 months, she called me into her office, and the yelling started. It intensified to the point where I was taken to the controller's office and given a choice. I could leave, or I could go on 90 days probation. Well, you all know if you go back on 90 days probation, they can fire you for no reason, and that's what they wanted. The reason they did this was because they had an unwritten policy or law, I don't know what it was, that said anybody that had a health problem, they no longer wanted because they didn't want to have to cover the expenses of it. Okay, so some of the things that can happen when you are bullied and it's so severe, you can develop migraine headaches, you can develop ulcers, you can suddenly you're depressed, you have anxiety, adult diabetes. I did develop adult diabetes, but I didn't connect it until years and years later. Hypertension and cardiovascular disease. Psychological problems. During that time, I started seeing a psychologist. And I believe the hospital did pay for that. I think they wanted me to go so that they could use that against me too. I started seeing a psychologist, and by the time I left, I was so traumatized that I could no longer leave my home unless I went with my husband Tom or one of my sons drove. I couldn't make up my mind on anything. I couldn't do a job that, you know, I couldn't keep my mind on it. I was so petrified that I'd be doing it wrong. That lasted 7 years. And it didn't stop until I moved up here to Gallia. And that's when my husband told me, he said, look, I can't, you know, go to work all day, drive in a truck, and come home and take you grocery shopping. Just be, you know, at 8 o'clock at night. So I started getting out. Well, that's one of the biggest things that ever happened to me in my life. And when that happened, years later, I started thinking about all this type of treatment, and I decided something has to be done about it. So that's why I wrote the book, and I continue speaking on it. Okay, let's talk about how in the world can we stop this. Should you confront the bully? How many of you, by showing of hands, think you should confront the bully? Wow. Pardon? Okay. Wait a minute. Isn't there a law, thou shalt not kill? Not many people are strong enough to face that bully. By the time you're beaten down, you're not strong enough to get up in their face, except for me. And, you know, I'm sometimes not the most bright thing in the world. I worked at Cypress Acres for a couple of years, and I don't know, how many of you knew the original owner, Gene Filer? Okay. You did? Okay. Mrs. Filer was the owner. Her daughter Mary, who is now gone to Jesus, was the administrator. Well, one day I was leaving my office. I did social services there. My office was at the end of a wing, and I was getting ready to come out and go out for my break. And Mrs. Filer came down the hall, and she heard me say, tell my office mate I was going on a break. And she said, Judy, and this was in front of everybody, Judy, you know, I've noticed that you take longer breaks than anybody here. Your break lasts about 20 minutes when it's supposed to be 10. And I tried to explain to her that the reason why my breaks appeared to be longer, well, she kept getting on me about this. And at the time I had red glasses, I pulled them off, threw them across my office, and I looked at her and I said, look, have you ever noticed how many family members I talk to that stop me on my way from my office to outside where I take my break and back again? She turned around and she walked away, and I thought, oh, I've done it, I'm fired. I mean, she never smiled. I never really heard her say anything really nice to any of the employees, which I'm sure she did. But I thought, okay, I'm done. You know, my job is history. I managed to get past her to go home, but the next morning I came in thinking, I am going to be fired. I know after talking to her that way. Isn't that insubordination or something like that? Anyhow, she was in her office, and I thought, okay, I'll be real quiet and just sneak by. Well, that didn't work. I got one step past her office, and she said, Judy, can I see you for a moment? And I thought, oh. I went in there, and I sat down on her invitation, and she talked to me so respectfully and so nice, and she never fired me. And it was like, okay, what just happened? Shouldn't I have been fired or something? Well, that was one case of where standing up to a bully worked, but not always does it work. So what can you do about this? What can we do about the person that is bullying you? Well, unfortunately, my first thought would be like someone else back there said. But the first thing you should do is pray for this person. They definitely need prayer. Yes, lots of prayer. By going after this person in anger, you're only lowering yourself to their level. Talk to this person in private. Don't do it in front of a bunch of people. Take them aside and talk to them in private. If things can't be resolved in a loving manner, you might want to get some counseling. And if the above doesn't work, take it to the pastor for some ideas. Most of the time, the pastors know the people in their congregation better than we do, and he or she can give you some insight on how to handle it. You know, God gave us talents and gifts. We don't always know where we belong in the church, but we do belong someplace, I'll guarantee you. We can't have it all, do it all, or be it all. and bullying others to prove you are the only person who can be is futile. We're the body of Christ. When one part gets broken or missing, it disrupts the rest of the body. Let's work together in harmony to do God's will and to give him all the praise and glory. And remember, don't let a bully rob you of the joy in your life.